John Sadak, TV voice of the Cincinnati Reds, and you're up for Late Night Reds Talk.
What's going on, everybody? Happy Monday night. You know what that means. Another fantastic edition of Late Night Reds Talk Live. I am Tim Daniel. Very excited for this week's show. It is brought to you by Bet Online and the Believe Podcast Network. Bet Online would like to wish you a happy new betting year as we continue to march to the playoffs and beyond. Bet Online remains your number one spot for all best sport wagering action for 2022. New year and a new updated desktop and mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV 50 to get started. From football, basketball, hockey, boxing, and UFC right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't want to take advantage of the amazing available offers for 2022. Bet Online is the fastest and easiest way to wager on all your favorite sports. Bet Online, where the game starts. And there's that. So let's go ahead and get into it. We got a really fun show today. I'm Tim Daniel, like I said, joined as always by our guy, our producer, Mr. Nick Kirby. How are you, sir?
Hey, I'm doing good. How you guys doing?
Good, man. Good. Very excited because we brought some experts in for stuff that we don't know about today.
I'm excited, man. I'm excited to talk some prospects, a little bit of Reds, everything in between. I've come to love the Reds community that Clay's kind of tapped us into here. So definitely excited.
Yeah, so that's the voice of Aram Leighton. He's a member of Just Baseball. Also joined us, Clay Snowden, who's been on the show in the past, also the Reds correspondent, or one of the Reds correspondents for Just Baseball. I don't know. I found out he's a Celtics fan, so I don't really care.
Yeah, I won't get into my fanhood because it's random and wild, but I'm doing well. Pretty much a sin for you all to put this during the college football championship game, but I know Nick Kirby does not recognize college football, so.
I thought you guys write for a website called Just Baseball. Am I confused or what's going on there?
Edit all this out, Tim, please. Oh, it's a live show.
Yeah, I also don't do the editing. Nick does, so. Yeah, so there's that. Well, cool. So Aram and Clay are here today to they did their list of top 10 prospects for the Reds, and they're going to kind of run us through everything and kind of talk about the guys that they listed, what they like about them, what they don't like about them. So whenever you guys are ready to get started, we'll go ahead and get this brought up.
Yeah, absolutely, man. This was a fun one to write. You know, we talked a lot about it. I was bouncing a lot of things off of Clay as well. And, it's top heavy in terms of the farm system, but two guys at the top with, probably the best pitching duo prospect wise in all of baseball with Lodolo and Hunter Green. And that's a really fun conversation as to, who I think can help the team the most next year. And both of those guys, I think, are a big part of the future and pretty close to big league ready. And then there's a mix of some really intriguing upside guys that you might have to wait a little bit for, and then some guys in between those two. So it's an interesting system, no doubt about it. And I had a really good time writing it up and going through each of the top 10.
Nice. So we'll start here. At number 10, you guys have Andrew Abbott, who is a second-round pick in this year's draft. Low A, left-handed pitcher, 6 foot 180. Curious here, so kind of talk about him. Should the Reds fans be worried about the fact he's from Virginia, considering that's where Nick Howard came in, who they drafted in the first round a few years ago?
I'll let Clay grab that one first.
Yeah, so Nick Howard was not a good draft pick at all. Nick Travioso was another name that comes to mind as two Reds arms that they picked that just did not pan out. Virginia pitchers correct me if I'm wrong on this, have not fared too well, have they?
Not great. I tend to stay away from that for the most part. It's always a popular talking point where you talk about, where these guys came from and then the commonality there. But I think Abbott's a unique guy where he just I thought it was one of my favorite picks from the draft. I was surprised he fell to 53. Everything I saw from him, I really liked. I think it was a safe pick, a much needed, just safe arm in this system, especially a lefty, because outside of Lodolo, I think they really lack those guys. He's super advanced. I think he'll climb through the minors quickly. I think he's got a deep arsenal, bunch of different off-speed offerings that he can go to. And I just liked that pick in the second round. I thought there was some great value there to be able to steal him away. I was very surprised to see him fall there. But anytime you have a decent fastball that you can play up because of the fact that he has an above-average slider, a curveball I like, and a changeup that has a chance, you got a 4-pitch mix. You can mask an average fastball.
Yeah, and I have not watched much of him, besides a few things on YouTube. Aram follows college baseball very closely. I do not. Um, but everything that I can tell, I mean, I thought it was a great pick too. And they, like Aram said, they need some lefties. Right now, it's Nick Lodolo, but with Abbott coming from college, he's in a similar situation that Lodolo is. I know that we'll touch on this later, so I won't go too deep into it. But his track is a little bit accelerated than like where Hunter Green was. And when we talk Hunter Green versus Nick Lodolo, we'll kind of get into that as well. But yeah, I like the pick. You can never have too many lefties with upside.
No, absolutely not. And I think the balance of high floor with still a chance to be a good arm, with a little bit more of a ceiling as well, I think he projects as a good back end of the rotation starter and a good chance to get there.
Nice. Well, that excited me. So I'm not worried about him being Nick Howard.
No, and there's a lot that goes into it.
You should not worry about that.
Yeah. You guys, the pitchability too, which is huge. Being able to mix in all those pitches. That's where drafting a college guy. Yeah, you might not get an ace, but there's something to be said about the high chance of becoming just a big league starter.
Yeah, absolutely. Nick, should we move to? All right, we are moving to number 9. Cool. I've heard of this guy a lot, so I can kind of say I know his name at least. Rhys Hines, third baseman, also in low A. Big power hitter, I know, obviously, has been the conversation for him, and there's been many of articles written about him this season for a guy the Reds can look forward to. What can you guys tell us a little bit about Rhys Hines?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone kind of knows what the what the pulse is on somebody like Rhys Hines, right? Big time power. How much is he going to hit? That's a mold where it's pretty common to see those types of guys. But I was really encouraged from what we saw from Hines. And I think you could have easily justified moving him up a spot or two and easily could have put him ahead of Austin Hendrick. The only reason I kept Hines at 9 was his season was short due to injury. I wanted to see him, get a little bit more of a look in high A potentially. We didn't get to see that. Also, I'm not sure about the defense at third, so that's something I want to see a little bit too. If he gets moved to first base, there's even more pressure on his bat there. But I was really encouraged with what we saw overall offensively. I think he kept the swing and miss in check to a decent degree. He was able to show the power, 12 home runs in 54 games. I was impressed with his swing overall. I thought there was less moving parts than there were the last time we saw him. I thought his bat to ball skills were improved from the last time we saw him. And this is a guy that could easily jump up the top prospect rankings pretty quickly. Really, the only reason he's not higher is, like I said, that the season cut short, just 54 games due to an injury, was the only reason why I didn't get to see enough to boost him up a little bit more ahead of some of these other guys.
Yeah, and for me, Hines is one of those guys when he was selected, very raw. Everyone knew about his power. I don't want this to sound like a negative, but maybe kind of labeled as somebody who has a higher bust potential than others just with his swing and miss. But I think that Hines has a good chance to be an everyday player. I don't know if he'll stick at third either. I'm thinking maybe a corner outfield could be a spot for him in the future. I think he's going to take longer than some prospects. I don't think that, first off, I think the Reds should be patient. And I think especially kind of the direction that they're headed, they may be more patient with some of these hitters. So I think Hines still is a few years away and still has more to prove. But if they can just bring him along slowly, not try to, have him be the person who takes over third base if Suarez starts to be, the typical Suarez, come June or anything like that. So I like Hines. I just want to see a little bit more from him.
Ooh, we got a YouTube question on Hines. Yeah, let's hear it.
So
yeah.
Our guy Steven Offenbaker asked, will Rhys really be moved to a new position because of injuries?
I don't think so. I think that might be my mistake if I didn't phrase that properly. I don't think that it would be because of injuries or anything like that. He's 6'4". He doesn't move exceptionally well. I still would bet on him sticking at third, where he'll be slightly below average defender. The bat's really what you're playing for here, and ultimately, I think he sticks at third. But yeah, if he slows down a little bit more, you could see him move to first base or corner outfield. If he can make the move to corner outfield, that's fine too. And I think that the bat is going to be, the big calling card. What I did like to wrap up on him in terms of what was encouraging to me, crushed fastballs 93 miles an hour and up, which is something that I look at a lot with these big power, potential swing and miss guys that might have some length to his swing. I think that's a testament to the fact that his swing is further along than I think some may think. Hit 333 with a 653 slugging percentage against fastballs 93 and up. Held his own against breaking balls, which was a big question too. I'm looking at Hines to potentially jump up this list next year. Again, only reason was just limited action. But I'm very excited, and I think relative to where he is, he's got a lot more upside than maybe some of the other guys that are in this range in other systems.
And Aram mentioned that he's projected potentially to be a average to below average third baseman, which is exactly what the Reds always seem to have. So he'd fit right in.
The Reds have a lot of third basemen right now.
It's having Moustakas and Suarez, who are both not good, seem like having 35 third basemen. Yes, because when you have two that aren't very good, you don't have one.
That kind of interesting. That kind of leads me to my question on Hines, because you have him projected at 2024 as the ETA, which is actually after both guys are gone. What do you think is the best case scenario if everything goes right for him, the earliest you could see him in the majors?
Yeah, I really think that not getting a look at high A is, it's slowed him down a little bit. If he plays the full season, he gets to high A by the end of that year, this past year, and then starts next year regardless in high A, but would have a little bit more of okay, he's doing well through a couple months. We'll bump him up to double A. He's going to probably spend a majority of this coming season in high A. And for that reason, I think it slows him down a tick. I think the best case scenario, though, I think we could see him up by, midway through 2023 if he blazes through this year. I mean, we saw a lot of prospects make up for lost time in 2020 and climb 3 levels last year. So it's not outside of the realm of possibility. I think mid-season 2023 is the best case. And you know what? Like I said, he's more advanced of a hitter than I think a lot of people thought he would be, myself included. So I wouldn't say it's impossible to beat that 2024 ETA.
Cool. All righty. At number 8, we have 2020 first round draft pick Austin Hendrick. And the first thing that jumps out, obviously, is the splits there. So Clay, as someone who follows the Reds as much as Nick and I do, I see 380 on base percentage and also a nearly 38% K rate. Why should I not be worried that this is Adam Dunn?
First off, Adam Dunn would be praised in today's baseball.
Yes, he would. Absolutely.
He is such an underrated. If I'm Adam Dunn, and anyone who follows Adam Dunn to this day knows Adam Dunn loves to drink Bud Light and watch Texas football. That guy would be he was a fan favorite. He'd be like an MLB favorite at this point if he was in the MLB. But yeah, so sorry, I didn't mean to go off your tangent there, Tim. But I love Adam Dunn, and
I do too. I just joke.
Yeah, I pray this guy is Adam Dunn. We're in good shape.
But I did also bought a lot of Austin Hendrick base rookie cards as Bowman's first and everything. Is that a bad investment?
Yeah, maybe.
They were cheap.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, look, did you buy him now or early?
I bought him when he was drafted, when the set came out.
Yeah. Here's the thing with Hendrick is he's a really tough guy to project and this is why I have him ahead of Hines still. I obviously was much more encouraged by Hines than Hendrick last year, but this was Hendrick's first professional season. We didn't get to see him in 2020. And another really important note is he comes from an area where competition is just not great. I mean, and he'll tell you himself, he was facing guys in high school throwing in the upper 70s. So you go from there to making the jump to professional baseball. And that's a big leap. And the biggest thing that stands out to me is that the things that he could get away with in his swing that, he could do against 78, 82, 83 mile an hour fastballs, he got blown up doing that against, big league, or not big league, but professional pitching. And that's the big thing here. As I look at his swing, there's too many moving parts. He doesn't have much control of his lower half. And for that reason, he got blown up by heaters, and he just was not comfortable at the plate. When he ran into baseballs, he ran into them. He actually doesn't chase that much either. He's got a good feel for the strike zone. He was just swinging through pitches in the strike zone because there's so much movement to his swing and so many moving parts that he has to time up. If he comes out next year and simplifies things, he's got kind of unteachable bat speed that he could come out next year and be phenomenal. So that's why he was really hard for me to project. I look at his swing and I'm like, there's nobody that can get away with that pre-swing setup and all of that movement. Yet, if someone could, it's him, and he found a way to still be somewhat competitive with all of that. His bat speed's crazy. You can't teach that. He's got a good feel for the strike zone. I'm not giving up on Hendrick, but I mean, he's got to make some major changes to his swing. If he comes out next year looking the same, I'll be very discouraged. But if he comes out looking a lot different with a lot more of a quiet setup, I think this guy could really, really be one of the breakout kind of turnaround players in the minor leagues this coming year.
Yeah, and when they selected him, they knew it would be a long road. This was not like their first round pick this year, who we'll talk about, where it's closer, college guy, somebody who's a little bit more of a closer to they are what they are. When they selected Hendrick, they knew that it would take a long time. They liked his bat, particularly his power. So, there's no reason for people, and when people watch this show or listen to it, I don't want them to think these are, some us writing somebody off, or, we're talking about 19 to 23, 24-year-olds. Like, they have a long road ahead of them. So right now he's, looks like he's struggling. He was also dealing with a little bit of injury throughout the year. So he's just another guy who has a long road ahead of him. But there's no reason to give up on him yet.
So I see that Pipeline has him at 4. You have him at 8, Aram. Is that more the flaws in the swing that you see, or is that just more of the philosophy of the way that you rank players?
Yeah, it's more really just the flaws in the swing. I just look at that and I'm like, I would say with a high confidence interval that swing won't work. And it seems like a lot of people I've talked to seem to agree with that, in the industry. And I think the reason why they don't bump him down necessarily is, MLB Pipeline likes to remain pretty stagnant on guys. And I think that's a good approach too. It's a volatile industry and it's not a bad idea to try to level it out a little bit. I was just looking at what I saw from him last year, and another guy that, if he comes out with big adjustments, this is a very fluid top 10 compared to a lot of other teams. But yeah, when you're striking out 38% of the time nearly in low A, and, a big reason for the walk rate was that he was swinging through strikes and nobody has command in low A. And eventually when he got deep into the count, they walked him, but he does have a good feel for the zone as a hitter. And yeah, I just think I'm going to be a little bit more eager to bump guys when I see some major mechanical issues in their swing. But again, he's a fluid guy that I think could make the jump back up.
So the difference between your rankings and Pipeline, just for people at home, is probably you're more aggressive with moving players on a month to month or whatever basis, as opposed to Pipeline, who kind of pencils guys in and doesn't want to move guys up and down as much.
Yeah, something for me too is I watch so much, and I really want to be as up to date and consistent as possible. And I think for MLB Pipeline, I don't know if they update as frequently. And I'm curious who they would have behind Hendrick. When I'm looking at what they have going on here, because I just think when you look at the year he had, when you look at some of the struggles, and it's still some question marks, I think he's probably going to end up in a corner rather than center. I just think that after a year where you're striking out nearly 40% of the time in low A, it's hard to justify. It's more so the guys that I have ahead of him, I really like. And I think once we get into the 7 range and up, I like those guys. And it was just hard for me after that year to put him ahead of them. But, a big season would change that.
Pipeline also tends to put recent, like right after they get drafted, players in, not before they proved anything. Obviously, they proved enough to get drafted, but then when they don't move as much. So I would imagine, Pipeline does not update too often, especially like
Well,
right now when there's not a lot going on. But then they put in the recent draft picks, and then they don't move too much. But so I could expect him to move at some point soon.
It works both ways too, because I'm looking at pipelines now, and Ellie De La Cruz is a name who we'll get to. That's a guy that I have it at 3. And Fangraphs has him as the number 73 overall prospect in all of baseball. And a spoiler alert, I'm going to have Ellie De La Cruz in our top 100 update in the next few weeks. So that's a side of it too, is I think they're slow to relegate guys, and they're very slow to promote guys too. I think they still have like Royce Lewis in the top 100 and things like that. Fangraphs has De La Cruz as a top 100 guy, and Pipeline has De La Cruz as the number 8 prospect in this system. So I always find that kind of interesting. It shows you how all over the map it can be a little bit.
I like it. All right, so number 7. Since this was the first year we started doing late night Reds talk, this is I looked at guys after they were drafted, and this is a guy that I looked at his highlights. I was pretty impressed by. You guys can obviously speak more to your expertise on it than I can. That's Jay Allen. 19 years old. The athleticism just pops when you watch the clips. Whether you can tell reading his bio, he's a 3-sport athlete. He's got a lot of upside. On base percentage, I really liked. I like the K rate's down pretty low. The 14 stolen bases are what was sexy to me when looking at his projections. So, what can you guys tell us about Jay Allen?
Yeah, I mean, 3-sport athlete. The more I look at these guys that are getting drafted, and just athletes in general in the minor leagues, hitting has become so challenging, and there's just so much biomechanically that goes into it now, and guys trying to just make all the right moves, that a lot of guys that played multiple sports are able to get to places with their body, with their swing, that a lot of other guys just aren't capable of. Athleticism is a premium, even for hitters now, of all types. And I look at Jay Allen, his swing is so easy. It's so fluid. He controls his body really well. And that's a really important thing here, because this is a guy that would be perceived as raw, right, in terms of prospect, just like Rhys Hines is and just like Austin Hendrick is. But Allen actually has a more advanced feel to hit than the other two. He might not have the power upside that these guys have, but he hits the ball pretty darn hard still to his pull side. I'd say above average power to the pull side, but a better feel to hit than those guys. And what I like about Allen is there's not as much pressure on his bat, right? Like, he could probably play center field. If he plays a corner, he's going to be an above average defender. He's an above average runner who can steal bases. He's going to fill out more too. He's 6'3", 190 pounds. I think he's going to add a little bit more power, but could see above average power there. I like the complementary aspects to his game. I like the feel to hit. I love the multi-sport profile. And I thought this was a home run pick after going safe with Matt McClain, who we'll get to. I love the upside here from Jay Allen. And I'm expecting him to make a pretty smooth transition next year. And I'm really excited about this guy.
So I've not watched too much Jay Allen, but I was really excited when they signed him. I was worried if he was going to sign or not for a minute there. But I know I've said this over and over, but the Reds just do not have a ton in center field in their system, especially anyone that's close to the MLB. While Allen is not close to the MLB, I think that they were kind of banking on some guys like Ciani and a few other prospects in the past to be there. And there's kind of this gap right now. And Allen's a guy with enough talent that he could quickly close that gap. So, yeah, I love the pick. Other than that, I think Aram pretty much covered everything that. Now, quick question for you, Aram. I'm just seeing this. Where he went to high school, is that anywhere close to where you're from, or where is that?
No, I think that's more Central Florida.
Okay.
But another big talent hotbed over there too. And a guy that played quarterback and basketball as well.
Yeah.
But no, not too close to me, unfortunately.
Okay.
What's your thoughts on his defense, his ability to play center field?
Yeah, it was hard. I didn't have too much of a look in that regard. I could only see so much. But in terms of his twitchiness and in terms of his ability to get jumps out there, I liked his arm. I think he can be an above average defender in center field. I really do. If he does get bulky a little bit and slows down, without a doubt, an above average defender in a corner, and then the bat would probably profile a bit more. But I think this guy can play center field. What I really liked, especially when I saw him on the base paths, in terms of, he's not a burner. He's an above average runner, maybe close to a plus runner, not, this just absolute speedster. But his footwork is so good from football and basketball. His twitchiness is he's really quick. He gets good jumps. That's why he was able to steal those bags. I think that's going to play in center field as well. And I expect him to be a good defender out there.
Cool. All right. Number 6, we have Graham Ashcraft, just pitched in Double-A this year. I know this is a guy that we've actually been asked about a couple times on the show. So obviously there seems to be a lot of fandom for him within the Reds organization. I know, Clay, you've talked about him before on our show as well.
Yeah. And if you don't mind, Tim, can I hijack your own show and ask Aram the first question?
Do it, please.
Aram, for those of you who have not, and this is just to grab people's attention, for those of you who have not read the article, can you tell me the name that you compared Graham Ashcraft to?
People are gonna laugh, and before I specifically explain it, I ran this by a few different people. I ran this by like some of my most advanced analytics contacts in terms of pitch profile, movement profile, because I was watching this and I was like, it looks so similar. His fastball and slider / cutter combination is Emmanuel Class A-esque. And it's not even an exaggeration at all. And I'll get into it a little bit in terms of the Reds top 10 list was delayed because of Graham Ashcraft. I spent hours watching more Graham Ashcraft because I was diving into the splits, because the splits are weird. In a good way. Like, he carved up all types of hitters, but really carved up lefties. And I thought that was really interesting. Lefties had a 445 OPS against him. Righties had a 656 OPS against him, which neither is good for the opposing hitter. 34% K rate against lefties, 23.4% K rate against righties. He's got that gyro slider type cutter movement, and he's also got a ridiculous breaking ball that just looks like a power swerve. His fastball's got crazy movement to it. He is a difficult at bat. And I think Ashcraft could go into a bullpen and be spectacular like right now with that pitch mix. But I think he's got a shot as a starter, because the fastball sits 95 to 97, and it literally registers as a cutter at times because of that profile. And that's the crazy thing about it. I couldn't even tell if it was on purpose or not. And the more I watched it, I was like, this guy just has a gyro fastball that you don't really see often at all. I think it's something like 2 inches of horizontal movement. It's like the profile is so bizarre. I can't even explain it. I'd get so deep into nerdy stuff, but there's a reason why he posted a 60% ground ball rate and exceptional swing and miss numbers. He does things with the baseball that you don't really see very often.
Yeah. And so I have heard about his name for a while now, and I've watched him here and there, but never really watched him closely until this year. And every time he pitched, not every time, but most times he pitched, I would go back and watch the game. Simply because that movement is crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm thinking, why is he not ranked higher? Why aren't many people talking about him? And I thought, okay, well, I am no genius, and I especially am no genius when it comes to like mechanics or anything. I thought, man, maybe he's just older than these guys. He's carving up or something. I don't know. And I was waiting for the Just Baseball top 10 to come out, and Aram kept saying, oh, it's going to be this day or that day. And it's like 12:30 at night, and I get this text from Aram. He's like, dude, why is no one talking about Graham Ashcraft? And he was just like down this rabbit hole. And for the next day, he just kept diving into him, and we were texting back and forth about him. I was like, I'm so glad that someone that knows baseball much more than me appreciates what the Reds have here. And he should not be thrown into any of these trades that
No.
Everyone's favorite trade machine. does not value him in a way that I think the Reds should, or that we as fans should as well.
This is the type of guy, because the Rays make a living on, and the Dodgers too. They make a living on identifying undervalued prospects by their own organization. Graham Ashcraft, I mean, I don't know how the Reds regard him, but just that's the type of guy that they would target. His stuff also, like something that I was really wowed by is he will go right at lefties. And like, what's the one place that lefties love pitches? Usually it's down and in, right? He was tying up lefties down and in with that power slider, like swervish type pitch. It's bizarre. I don't even know what to call it. The fastball would cut in on guys, and then he could also get it to go a little bit down the other way. Everything was going opposite directions. When you have a high K rate and high ground ball rate, really good chance for success, right? I mean, Luis Castillo, perfect example. It's really hard to have a high ground ball rate and high K rate, and Ashcraft did just that last year to a ridiculous degree.
So you guys probably both, barring injury, think he pitches for the Reds in 2022?
Yeah, I would think so, right? I mean, that's more of a U-Pulse thing, right, Clay? Because like I think he could be ready by mid-season.
I think it depends entirely on the other two ahead of him that we're going to talk about. In my opinion, he goes to AAA and pitches there for. And do they want to move him to the bullpen? I wouldn't yet if I were the Reds. I think that any type of spot start or short-term injury innings are going to preferably go to, as long as they are healthy, Green and or Lodolo. But I could see, especially if the trade deadline comes around and Castillo, Gray, Tyler Malley, whoever it is that could potentially be moved, especially if Ashcraft is pitching well. But if I had to bet money, I would say he would see innings this year. I don't know how much. There's always names that pop up, or guys that get opportunities. I mean, Riley O'Brien pitched and started in a game last year, and if he comes into spring training though and really shows what we've been seeing, I mean, yeah, for sure he's going to get some opportunity.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say on that is, when you have that 95 to 97 mile per hour fastball with that gyro type of spin where it cuts in on guys, and you can use it to lefties and righties and then also manipulate it to a four-seamer. Like he's a unique pitcher, and I'm really excited to kind of see how he continues to feel out his arsenal. He's someone that I'm really banking on to be a solid middle of the rotation arm that'll get you a lot of strikeouts and be a pretty high floor guy. And you want ground ball guys in Cincinnati, right? I mean, you got a place where the ball leaves the yard often. You get a guy that gets ground balls as much as anybody in the minor leagues, and it doesn't come at the expense of swings and misses either.
Yeah, and I cannot wait until spring training, because he's going to be that guy that, like, some people have seen his name but probably don't know too much about him, and he's going to like carve up some like 19-year-old free agent minor leaguer who's like so on the backfields, and someone's going to get a video of it, and the fans are just going to love it, and they're going to attach him. He's going to be, I mean, he has the chance to really become, up there with the others as, kind of the fan favorites to follow.
Mark my words, there will be a highlight that circulates this coming year of Graham Ashcraft getting a strike that hits somebody. Someone's going to swing and miss, and it's going to hit them. That's how ridiculous and late breaking his power slider swerve thing is. That is the type of thing we're going to see from him next year. Mark my words. Nick,
if you had to pick the player for it to hit, who would you pick?
I'm not going down that that hill. I guess more for Clay. Any chance he comes into camp and is just wows him so much he makes the rotation out of camp?
No. And in my opinion, you should. To me, if you're going to give a rotation spot to a rookie, because so under the assumption, in my opinion, one rookie should start. If they're going to start it, so somebody out of camp, it should be Lodolo, in my opinion, then Green, then Ashcraft, if healthy, and if they're pitching well. I don't like the people that are doing the whole let's trade everyone. We have these prospects. They're 23. Let's pump them in. You cannot rely on rookies to win. Now, if they're just going to tank, then that's different. But as the roster is constructed today, I don't see any chance of him being an opening day rotation guy yet because they don't need to. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. Like, why do that right now when you have two guys ahead of him who Lodolo, in my opinion, is closer? Like, give him the shot. I'm just maybe I'm slower than others when it comes to prospects, and I don't want to rush everyone in. I know fans are always wanting to call the guy up immediately after he starts, but put him in AAA. And if he pitches well there, you can call him up. But I just don't see the rush.
General question I have before we move to the next person. I play in a dynasty fantasy baseball league that holds and saves, and also innings pitched. Is this a guy I should target in the minor league portion?
Yeah, I think so 100% because you're either getting a solid middle of the rotation starter or you're getting a lights out reliever, right? You get this guy in a 1 inning spurt, he's probably going more 97, 99. And that's why I give you the Class A comparison because the pitch has almost an identical movement profile to his cutter when he cuts it. So, yeah, I would 100% target this guy.
Cool. Keep that in mind. Get smart on my opponents. At number 5, we have outfielder Alan Serda. Did I say that right?
Yep, Alan Serda. And no, Nick brings up a good point too about MLB pipeline. They've got Serda at 17, and like this is just one of those things that going into the year. Similar guy that I bumped up really high prior to the season was Gabriel Moreno, and I think he was 12th on the Blue Jays top 30 prospects for MLB pipeline. And now I think he's the 12th overall prospect in baseball. So, again, it's a little bit of the slow roll. And this is another guy that I feel like I'm out in front of here. And I'm very confident in, where I'm at with Alan Serda. I really like him. I do think that there's a little bit of swing and miss to follow, obviously. But the production is just too hard to deny. And he didn't really blink in high A. He actually made some adjustments to his swing in high A that I really liked. And that's why we saw the numbers actually improve. Whenever you see a guy have his K rate drop from low A to high A, which I believe it did with Serda, and then I'm able to corroborate that with the physical, tangible adjustment he made in the box, I'm going to be very convinced in that improvement we saw from the promotion. And that's exactly what happened with Serda. And, watching some of the towering home runs he hit, I mean, he hit some bombs, 108 miles an hour, 440 plus feet. He's got crazy power. He drives the ball really well to dead center. He got better as the year went on, driving it the other way. He walks a decent amount, got the strikeout rate a bit more in check. He's a center fielder now. I think he can play there in a pinch, but I think he's going to keep filling out. He's 6'3", 170. I see him putting on more muscle, which is going to only add to what already is well above average power potential. He will be a potentially plus defender in a corner. I tweeted out a highlight of him making an absurd play, but he moves really well. He's agile, makes all the great catches, has a big arm in the corner. So above average defender in a corner, big time power potential, and improvements as the year went on in terms of making more contact. This guy's a top 100 prospect for us, and towards the back end, but he's a top 100 dude, and he's a name to watch, no doubt.
Yeah, I have been loving everything that I've seen from him. And when you watch him and you have no idea what you're watching, you just turn on the low A game, and you just see the ball jump off his bat in a different way than the other players on the team.
Yeah,
and that's what initially caught my eye. And then I was watching more of him in the same clip that Aram is talking about. I tweeted out as well the day that the game happened, and he's just in right field and makes a spectacular catch. That same game, I think he had like 3 hits. He was just all over the place, and he's just oozing with potential. And he is on the 40-man. No, that does not mean he's going to make the opening day roster or anything. But I could see a situation where he definitely climbs pretty fast. There, like Arm said, the swing and miss is somewhat of a concern, but that power is real. If he can fill out, and I know Arm, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was you and Jack talked about him on a podcast.
Yeah,
and how he trained with Juan Soto. Or you want to talk about that?
He did, and the thing with Serda too is he seems to really you could tell he's looking to make all of those improvements. And you could tell that to make an adjustment mid-season, and I'm assuming, he's got a lot of guys at the, if he's working out with Juan Soto, he's got some guys at his fingertips. And he was striking out 31% of the time in low A, and gets a promotion to high A and cuts it down to 23%. Walk rate stays consistent. Like that is super encouraging. Tells me he's smart at the plate. He's explosive. He's got swagger in the box as well. And my buddy Jack, who hosts the Just Baseball show with me, is play-by-play broadcaster for the Fort Wayne Tin Caps, saw a lot of Cerda too. And he said, that's one of those guys that it's different when it comes off his bat. And I totally agree. And I'm really excited about this guy.
He was added to the 40 man. So correct me if I'm wrong, but that typically, that helps push guys along, right? Because you don't want a guy just sitting in your 40 man roster holding a spot for, forever. It doesn't mean, they're going to rush him up in May of this year or anything, but.
And I think it tells you where they value him though, too, right? Like you're adding this guy to the 40 man, protecting him from the Rule 5 when he's not going to be up in the big leagues tomorrow. I mean, those 40 man roster spots are gold. They're really important to teams. And you look at what the Reds are doing here, adding him there, I think it says a lot. It also tells you that he's a lot better than the 17th prospect in the Red system, right? The Cardinals, for example, they don't protect Lucan Baker, who can swing it, but they don't protect him from the Rule 5 draft. And I believe he's ranked in the top 10, in some other prospect rankings. That clearly tells you that the Cardinals don't value him as a top 10 prospect. The guy raked in AAA, and they didn't add him in. That tells you where they value him. The Rule 5 is a nice little clue into where teams value some of their players. And if you're adding this guy to the 40-man just because you're scared at the off chance that someone drafts him in the Rule 5 and throws him straight in the big leagues, that tells you, one, that they're afraid other teams might be just as high on him, and two, they're extremely high on him, and I see every reason why.
Yeah, and it's not uncommon for the Reds to do this. Jose Siri was in a similar position, all the tools in the world. They put him on the 40-man roster. He was, in my opinion, not as close. Defensively, he could have played in the MLB at that point, but they ended up losing him and moving on from him because they needed that spot. I think Cerda is a little bit further along with the bat and less swing than miss. But yeah, when you see guys with tools like this and ability like this, you put them on that. A lot of people think, okay, does that translate to him playing this year? No. You can always move them off as well. So like what Aram was saying is, it gives you an idea of what they think of them. Well, that's true for position players in the most part. I think a lot of times with, especially bullpen arms, they'll add guys who have one or two things that's really interesting but are close, and in a pinch could be used. So I don't want people to think like Daniel Duarte or whatever his name is that was added by the Reds, who like pitched in the Mexican League, is like, so somebody who the Reds thinks a top 5 prospect or anything. But Cerda is one of those guys who's just, the bat comes off of his ball in a different way. The ball comes off of his bat in a different way.
I was like,
I looked at Tim and I was like, oh,
is his defense in center field good enough right now to play in the majors or close?
He's a guy that, he's such a good athlete that he'll make up for some of the bad routes and the bad reads that just any young player has. So I would say just with the way that guys hit the ball in the bigs, probably not yet, but he is, he is a guy that I think is above average at the position, especially relative to his level. And you talk to guys in the minors, they always say just the ball comes off so different once you get to AA and then once you get to the big leagues. And I just think it would be a little bit of stretching him out. But I think he'll be there pretty soon once he gets some more run in AA. And if he doesn't slow down at all, he could stick there. I think he could play there in a pinch no matter what. But if he slows down a step, he'll definitely be an above average defender in the corner.
Great American's an easier place to place since if they put Shin-Shu Chu out there in
Yeah, no,
center
he
field
could
for
do
a
it.
year,
He
like
could do it. He could
They
definitely.
he could do
They
it.
put Jesse Winker out there in
Jesse
center
Winker,
field.
center fielder.
Yeah, no, he'll be better than that. I can tell you that.
I would hope so. Can't be worse than that in center field. Yeah, just with the Reds, two main center field options right now are Senzel and Naquin. I mean, both guys have had a lot of injuries. I don't know. Concerta, being on the 40-man, it could a pinch, get into the midseason, he gets called up for a couple weeks. Is that something possible this year?
I think if you're in a crazy pinch, it's possible. I also wouldn't rule out Matt McLain being able to do that too. I really think Matt McLain is one of those guys that is as safe as it gets, and we'll get to him too. I don't know if they're going to want to stunt Cerda's growth. He's made so much. He's accumulated so much momentum, especially after that promotion to high A. But he could be a guy that quickly gets the bump to double A. And I mean, then once you're hitting in double A, then it becomes a little bit more, justifiable to be aggressive. But I think early 2023 is probably the most likely fast track and very possible scenario.
Cool. At number 4, Arms mentioned his name a couple times already through this podcast. This is Elly De La Cruz. So I imagine you have some excitement about this young man.
Let me start with a spicy, super hot take that
Oh boy,
I think we're safe from Yankee fans, so we should be okay
I know where
right
this
now.
is going.
He knows what I'm going to say. Elly De La Cruz is a better prospect than Jason Dominguez, and I just want to put that out there now. He is a better prospect than Jason Dominguez, and there's nothing that Jason Dominguez does that Elly De La Cruz can't. And I'll get into that right now. So De La Cruz obviously has a ways to go in terms of hitting because he's 19 and he's a switch hitter. And we got to see, just more in the bat to ball skills department. But he's pretty darn good already, given how raw he is. He's a plus runner. He has insane raw power. I was baffled watching this guy, watching him motor around on multiple triples where it was like 4 strides and he already got from first to second. 4 more strides, he's sliding into third. I was floored. He's already posting exit velocities over 110 miles per hour, which is in the top 2-3 percentile, really for the minor leagues. And at his age is off the charts. Factor in that he's 150 pounds, which is what I weighed, I think, in 8th grade. And he's already posting those kind of exit velos. That shows you how freakishly athletic he is. Switch hitter, already, as I mentioned, the plus runner, a ridiculous arm. I think a 70 grade arm. I don't really know what we're like missing here. I don't know how this guy isn't on every top 100 list, especially in a world where it's always about speculation. I typically like to see a bit more results before I bump guys up. That was always my pet peeve with Dominguez. But if we're going to celebrate Dominguez, De La Cruz is faster than him. He's posted better exit velos already, or at least right there with him. He's a better defender, and he has room to grow physically. Dominguez is maxed out. He could not physically add any more strength or he'll blow up. So I look at these two guys, and I think it really puts it in perspective because I think this guy well inside of the top 100. And if he has a big year, he's going to be on everybody's list. Mark my words.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with all of that. I cannot wait to see him in the spring because some people have said, and who knows what to believe, but that he's grown even taller, which is, in my opinion, bad. Like,
it's not
stay at
great.
6'2". We don't need O'Neal Cruz out here or anything, but
but O'Neal Cruz is generational in terms of the power.
Yeah, I bet the height. But if he sticks at short, that's awesome. If he moves to third, that's fine too. I mean, I feel like you could put him anywhere and he could learn that position. He's that athletic. And I know that there's been clips all around Twitter this year of him running. And that alone is much better than Dominguez, who struggles to run. I said on the podcast with Aram that Dominguez runs like Enos Cantor for anyone who can picture that.
And
in his
you know
freedom.
Yeah,
Enos freedom.
And he still gets plus running grades, although Baseball America just came around and bumped him all the way down to like 50 on his run tool. I watched Dominguez in person and I was just like, I mean, the power's there. Like he's got plenty of potential. But you know, if De La Cruz was a $5 million Yankee signee too, and showing what he's showing right now, he'd be, you know, celebrated the same way. But he was an under the radar $65,000 international free agent. And that really comes into effect with a lot of these top prospects, especially when they don't, you know, do all of their due diligence. I think that's exactly what happened with De La Cruz. But guess what? A vast majority of these top prospects were $150,000, $300,000 guys, just as much as the $5 million guys are. Because guess what? That industry is so effed up in terms of how they blow up some of these guys, how they, you know, I would say, you know, just really bolster their figures, their numbers. I actually talked to a Baseball America, one of my buddies at Baseball America right over there. And I was venting to him about the whole international free agency thing and just how messed up the whole system is. And, you know, how it would be interesting to kind of expose a lot of the holes in it. And he said, I wouldn't do that. You could die. And I thought it was dramatic, but I realized how much money's in there, you know, in these countries where it just is what it is. And so, you know, I think you have a lot of guys that fly under the radar, and Elly De La Cruz is one of the biggest examples.
Yeah, he's also a switch hitter, which is something I've mentioned this to Nick like middle of the year. I'm like, the Reds never have a switch hitter, and when they do, they've been so bad that they've pretty much given up switch hitting. I don't know. It doesn't really mean anything, but it is nice to kind of break up a lineup, especially with how many, you know, lefty bats the Reds have had, or how many people who can't hit lefties. Just not having to worry about so many platoons and stuff like that just helps with roster construction as well.
100%.
It's interesting you mentioned Jason Dominguez, because obviously, like I mentioned earlier, as a baseball card collector, he's kind of like the big investment. His PSA 10s have now dropped to about $41. People are spending $500 on that during the season.
Wow, they've dropped that much.
Yeah. So don't invest.
3 for 53 against breaking balls this year for Dominguez.
That's it?
Yeah, 3 for 53 against breaking balls. And, you know, you look at the run grades that Pipeline gives him 65. There's no way. De La Cruz is a true 70 guy. And might even be more than that, honestly. He could be one of the fastest guys in baseball. But obviously he'll probably slow down a tad. Just as the more he fills out. But yeah, this guy could be literally has as much upside as any prospect in baseball. I just got to see more before I, you know, put him way up there.
You've talked me into superstar.
Yeah.
Can he play shortstop? That's what
Billy Hamilton that can hit. I'm excited.
Right now, absolutely. If he turns into 6'7" O'Neal Cruz, like then I don't know. But right now, 100%. I was watching him make some plays that were special. He moves well. His arm is outrageous. Yeah, he could play short.
So just put Barrero in center field, clear a spot, right? No,
could do that. I think Barrero could play third.
Oh.
Ooh.
He did play some third in AAA right before he got called up after not playing there all year. They played him a few games at third, and I think left, if I remember right. But I remember seeing that third base and thinking, they have not done that ever in his career. That's something to monitor. So I don't know, maybe
a fun infield with De La Cruz, Barrero, and India.
It'd be a blast. I
Sign
would
me
love
up.
that.
Number 3, we have Matt McLain, obviously a guy everyone's very excited about. First round draft pick this year out of UCLA. And, you know, moved up pretty quick. Started rookie ball, got to high A pretty quick. There's a lot of excitement about him in the Reds fandom.
Yeah, and I think for good reason. This is a guy I've seen a ton of, going all the way back to the Cape Cod League for, you know, full season when I was out there. This guy, you know, he was a first-round pick out of high school, turned it down. Ultimately, it was the Arizona Diamondbacks that took him, turned down multiple million to go fulfill his dream of playing at UCLA. and then just boosted his stock even more and got drafted even higher and had a phenomenal career at UCLA and had a great summer in the Cape. He can play all over. He could play short. He could play third. He could play second. He could play all three outfield spots. He could almost play every single position on the diamond. He's a plus runner. I was impressed with a little bit more power than I was expecting when I got to see him with some wood bat, but probably still more of an average power output. But, that's something that could play up in Cincinnati. Elite feel to hit. That's what makes him really safe. I think he's probably it's going to be a race between him and Sal Frelick of the Brewers, I think, to be the first bat in that draft class up at the big league level. And I actually think McLean could be the answer in center field. I think he could stick at shortstop. I love the glove at shortstop. But, we look at a game now where defensive versatility is so valued. And, you see super utility with a negative connotation, but super utility got Chris Taylor $80 million. Super utility is not something that means you're not an everyday player anymore. And I think Matt McLean can be that guy. He could also be your everyday shortstop, but I think he's best served moving all over the diamond. And he's able to do that with an elite field to hit. He's going to hit for a high batting average. He's going to get on base at a good clip. And I think there's some similarities with Jonathan India there, except with more defensive ability. I don't know if he's quite going to have the offensive upside of India, just because India gets on base at such an incredible clip and probably has a bit more power. But I'd say a little bit more than a bit more power. But McLean, has that similar on base ability and can move all over the diamond with plus speed. This is just a safe guy. That's why I have him at 3.
Yeah, and to me, I think not Nick Senzel as a prospect, but Nick Senzel today, I think he's just a slightly better, a much better version of what Senzel is right now. A guy who can play all over, a guy who makes good contact. I watched a game this year where he hit a ball and he didn't even get all of it or anything, and it just kept carrying down the right field line and landed for a triple. And I was like, my gosh, his swing doesn't scream, like he's gonna hit a bomb. It's kind of similar in that way to like the Senzel swing, in my opinion. Not saying the swings are the exact same, but definitely gonna make some contact. I just think he'll be Nick Senzel but better.
Yeah,
I like the sound of that.
I love the idea of him moving all over the diamond. I think that's we're all about that here. So
yeah.
You love Kyle Farmer.
Love Kyle Farmer. I love Chris Taylor. I would have taken Chris Taylor over some of the other similar players that went for about that amount of money. It's insurance for other guys if you have guys go down. Yeah,
100%.
I don't know why more players don't do that. It makes you more money. What's the downside?
It's hard.
It is hard. My dad raised me, play every position. And that was something I did. And it saved me in high school because we ended up, having a couple stud professional, draft picks at the position, my main position. So, that's an important thing for young players. I always say it on the Prospects podcast too. But McLean was kind of forced to do that as well, even as the first round pick that decided to show up to campus. He's probably strutting his stuff like, oh, I'm going to take UCLA by storm. UCLA was a 50-win team that year, and Ryan Creedler was their shortstop, who ended up being a early draft pick to the Tigers. They had somebody else in center by the name of Garrett Mitchell. That team was loaded, and so he ended up playing all over even as a first-round draft pick going to college. He played 49 games in center his collegiate career, 11 games at third. He played 26 games at second, 59 games at shortstop, and played a little left and right. So, he's already shown he can do it at a high collegiate level, and I'm expecting him to do a little bit of the same in professional baseball too.
Cool. And obviously we know who 2 and 1 are, but it's obviously super fun to talk about them as well. Number 2, Hunter Green, obviously the number 2 pick in the 2017 draft. The strikeout rate was phenomenal. Definitely had as Clay kind of talked about in the past with us in AAA, had that stretch where he was getting strikeouts, but he was also giving up home runs at that time as well. But it seems like the expectations for him, even though it's taken a little longer than maybe Reds fans have hoped for, are still pretty high.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you could start on this one, Clay, and then I'll fill in any dots.
Yeah. So Hunter Green, to me, he when you throw 103 or whatever, and it gets hit, there's oftentimes that it's going to get hit far. That's just how science works, right? So his fastball is electric, and it's going to show up all over Twitter, and people are going to fall in love with that. He needs to work on his secondary offerings because that will then improve his fastball. Because right now his fastball is not the only thing you have to watch out for, but it's the thing that you have to key in on with how fast it is. And when your secondary offerings aren't as strong as I think they can become, then it makes your fastball something that they can put more focus on. So he does give up some home runs, not a great equation for Great American Ballpark. Um, Another reason why I think, he's 22 years old. He missed 2 years. Like, do not say Hunter Green needs to start and be a 30, 35 game starter for the Reds next year. Like, that's just not going to make people happy. It's not probably the best for, what's the best for Hunter Green. It's totally okay. It's not a failure if he starts in the minor leagues and just even if he only starts 5 or 6 games down there before he gets called up or whatever it may be. But I think if he could just focus in, and maybe he's doing it this offseason, it changes my opinion once we see him again. But work on the secondary offerings, and that way it will improve the fastball in a way. That's just my opinion on him, though.
I mean, look at the freaking Sports Illustrated. Like, look at this cover. Baseball's LeBron or the does it say or the
new babe. Aaron Hernandez.
That is just one. That's just not even fair. Like, that's not even fair. But what I will say though is,
thanks, Lee Jenkins.
Yeah, like, he is a really, really exciting pitching prospect. His athleticism on the mound is visible, and that's why his command has gotten better, and he throws strikes. He's got to hit his spots a little bit more. But he's the type of guy that I think as he develops, I don't see why he couldn't have that elite command of a triple digits fastball that you rarely see, right? That's like Jacob DeGrom-esque. DeGrom didn't break until he was 26, was an athletic guy as a former shortstop and converted, to the mound and took some time to develop, especially with the secondaries. You look at DeGrom's minor league stats. He was good, didn't strike out a ton of guys. I'm not saying Green's going to quite be DeGrom, but if there's any prospect that has even an outside shot to being close to that, it's Hunter Green, even though Lodolo is the safer bet for me at this point. The reason why Hunter Green gave up home runs, in my opinion, I feel pretty confident in this, in this breakdown of it, especially after talking to some hitters too, is it'll just bringing you into the mind of a hitter. You're facing Hunter Green, right? And of course, we're all going to get blown up by him, but let's pretend that we can hit triple-digit fastballs on occasion. Bring you into the mind of of a guy that's facing Hunter Green. He threw his fastball and his slider. That's it. And the fastball was thrown 66% of the time. So 2/3 of the time, you're getting the fastball. If you're a hitter, you are cheating for that fastball and nothing else, right? If he locates 3 sliders, you will tip your cap and you'll walk back to the dugout because he's not going to do that. And so hitters were cheating fastball, trying to catch that 100-mile-per-hour fastball out front, and a lot of them did it. And I mean, still not to the degree that you would expect, right? I mean, there was a 2 out of 3 chance they got the fastball, and he was still able to blow by guys. But the really good hitters, you'll get a lot of the home runs. It was former big leaguers in AAA. It was guys that had a game plan up there. I'm going to play the percentages and cheat for a fastball, knowing that there's a 2 out of 3 chance I get that. And that's why I believe the number was 11 or 12 of his 14 or 15 home runs were off of the fastball. Guys were just cheating for that. The slider is a good pitch. No one really hit the pitch that well at all. 548 OPS against the slider. That was not one that anyone was really planning on hitting. They were just daring him to locate that pitch, and he never really mixed in the changeup. Needs the third offering so that hitters can't play the percentages. That's really the only thing missing for Hunter Green.
Let me ask you this, because obviously we know we're kind of seeing this, this different baseball. Obviously, no one's ever going to be who I'm comparing it to, but obviously Shohei Ohtani has kind of set this new thing, and the Reds and Michael Lorenzen for a long time. Hunter Green recently posted a video on his Instagram where he was swinging, and he's got a nice cut. I know he hit really well in high school. Is there a possibility, could you see the Reds having a situation where they could use him, not necessarily as a quote full-fledged two-way player, but something where he could be kind of getting in that bat, especially with the potential nationally designated hitter coming in?
I wouldn't rule that out. I mean, he's such a crazy athlete and has so much offensive, any upside, period, that I wouldn't rule it out in an age where Shohei Ohtani is showing people it's possible. If Michael Lorenzen does it a little bit, then why not? I mean, we even saw, I'm drawing a blank. Rays, Louisville guy. Help, Clay.
Brandon McKay.
McKay. He's gone yard at the big leagues, right? But McKay, the goal was left-handed pitcher and like lefty bat off the bench. I think if you're in a pinch, right? We saw big league teams run out of bats off the bench in the postseason. I think Hunter Green could easily be that alternate guy, and he's definitely going to be that first bat off the bench. I wouldn't rule it out, especially when we're seeing someone like Ohtani pave the way. Hunter Green's a good enough athlete. I don't think he's that far off athletically from Shohei Ohtani, which is outrageous to say, but I don't think he is that far off. I don't think he has quite the prolific home run ability of Ohtani, but in terms of just athleticism, I don't think he's that far off. He's way more athletic than McKay and Lorenzen, I can tell you that.
I don't think that they will do it, and it's not because I actually agree with everything you just said, but the reason why I don't think they'll do it is just simply because they haven't yet in the minors really used him that way, and I feel like the other players that were mentioned, it was kind of part of the plan, and that is yet to be the plan yet. And he missed 2 years because of surgery and COVID, so maybe they were doing something that we don't know about, but. And if I'm the Reds, I have too many things that I need to improve on. I don't want to take my pitcher who is really going to set the foundation for the future and do anything else with him besides make sure he can be the best pitcher he is. That's just my personal approach.
I agree with that.
A lot of people get fascinated with these pitchers who can hit, and there's literally like DeGrom and Ohtani, and then like everyone told me like, oh, Michael Lorenzen's a great hitter. No, he's not. He's just a good hitter for a pitcher. He was still a not very good hitter with some pop. That's all it was. I mean, you can find those a dime a dozen. So I'm not as interested in that. But it would be fun. But I'd rather the Reds focus on Hunter Green becoming the pitcher that they need for the next 8 to 10 years.
I'm not saying play him at shortstop or anything, Clay. I'm just asking a question.
Well, I would say too, he was still getting to hit in AAA. He had 20 plate appearances last year because pitchers still hit. So if you're
they have the DH for the most part, just depending on which team they're playing.
But what I'm saying is if we go to a DH, I think there's a possibility that they could. Play him, I don't know, maybe once a week or maybe use him as a pinch hitter or something like that. I would just say, saying that they haven't used him as a hitter. Well, he gets to bat as a pitcher, so he has already kind of batted. I think it might be a little bit of a different scenario if he didn't get to bat every other game.
Yeah.
That he starts.
Do you know what his hitting stats were? I genuinely have no idea.
3 for 19.
Yeah.
319?
3 for 19.
I thought you said 319.
No. It's been a while for him.
10 for 49 overall, 3 extra base hits, no home runs yet. So,
yeah,
Alex Blandino type line right there.
San Francisco Giants star Alex Blandino. Don't forget it's going to happen.
The last player who we all kind of wrote off, who was a similar type of middle infielder. Did Connor Joe come or go from the Giants? He was on the Reds during spring training, and then I think he went to the Giants, and now he's playing great in Colorado. Like, what if Alex Blandino becomes the next Connor Joe? Unlikely.
And that brings us to I'm kidding, Clay. I don't know.
I did not expect to talk about Alex Blandino tonight. I'm sorry.
It's okay, buddy. We'll forgive you. So that brings us to number 1 on the list. No surprises here, obviously. That's Nick Lodolo, left-handed pitcher, first-round pick in the 2019 draft. Aram, you said when we started talking about this at the beginning of the show that the Reds have the best 1-2 combo of prospects in baseball. And obviously, this is the second half of that duo.
Yeah, I mean, this guy, if it weren't for the shoulder fatigue, I think he would have had one of the best, minor league pitching seasons we've seen in a while. Other than Grayson Rodriguez and now the graduated Shane Baz, it's hard to justify really putting anybody above Lodolo because, again, it's the combination of swing and miss and ground balls that is just it's so nice, right? Because even when you're off, when you're not getting a ton of swing and miss, you're getting ground balls, you're getting outs, you're going deep into starts, you're keeping your pitch count down, you're doing well. 6'6", velo is in the mid 90s. At times will even touch upper, but more in the 94 to 96 range. Heavy fastball with sink. That's why he posts ground ball rates at about 55%. A really good feel for his arsenal, a nasty slider. And when you got pitches going opposite ways, right? You got a fastball with run and then a slider going that way. That overlay is a nightmare for a hitter. Then has a nasty changeup as well that he uses really well. And then on top of that, ridiculous command. It's really hard to not like this guy. And you look at the numbers against each of his pitches. 688 OPS against his fastball. That's spectacular. You usually see, most guys get their fastball hit around, especially in the minor leagues. 356 OPS against his breaking ball, despite throwing it a third of the time. And then, I'd like to see him use the changeup a bit more, but had success, only a 625 OPS against that, but only mixed it in about 6% of the time, was using a curveball a little bit more as that change of pace pitch. But he doesn't really need that much more. So I think he's big league ready now, assuming he's healthy. And he's got all the goods. He's got all the goods. He's got ace potential with a floor of absolute floor of a 3. But I think he's going to land as a high end 2 potential ace type.
Yeah, I've talked so much about him and tweeted so much about him that I don't need to go over all that. But I did have a question for Aram. I actually read, and I just want your opinion on this. I just read this somewhere where someone compared him. Now they did not specify if they were comparing his delivery or him as a player to Madison Bumgarner. What do you think about that?
The stuff is definitely different. But I do think that there's some similarity in terms of the high 3/4 type of release and the good extension that he gets. And I think that's part of what makes him so hard to hit, right? Like everything's coming out here, especially if you're a lefty. Everything looks like it's coming at your hip. If you're a righty, it's breaking late towards you. I do see some similarities there in terms of that extension and that lower arm release. Trevor Rogers is another one that's similar, except Rogers is more of a, fastball up in the zone guy with life, whereas, Lodolo is more of the heavy fastball. You don't see many guys with a heavy fastball from a high 3/4 release point. Usually they want to get, riding life up in the zone. And I think that's what makes Lodolo so difficult is he's very unusual. So kind of like Ashcraft. And I think it really works for him well. And he knows himself well as a pitcher. The dude struck out 40% of batters last year. I mean, that's an absolute joke.
I was just trying to find for reference. So 6'6" as a left-handed pitcher, how rare that is. And it's pretty rare. I mean, Clayton Kershaw's 6'4", and obviously Randy Johnson was 6'10", but that's a different person and human being specimen itself. But that's kind of pretty interesting to see this tall lefty dude just come out there and throw like that.
Absolutely. And I think he's taken some notes from those guys because I saw him mix in that 4-seamer more last year too, which I love because that's a pitch. You get him up in the zone, getting guys chasing that, and then you get the heavy fastball down in the zone. He's got the 4-seamer, 2-seamer, and then the slider and the changeup. He can kind of take a little bit from all those different types of tall lefties that not a lot of guys have the ability to do, but because he's so advanced, because he has a good feel to pitch, he can take a little bit of everybody, and that's why I think he's so special.
Do you mind if I put you on the spot real quick?
Sure.
Are there any names that you came across that maybe you were lower on than you thought? Like just names to keep an eye on, not saying that they're, bad prospects, but some guys who may not have performed well, who you think could still potentially, wow, good job, Nick. Still potentially kind of, make an impact for the Reds in the future.
I'm not giving up on Tyler Callahan. I think it's unfortunate, the time he's missed. I also, I don't think he's a superstar, But I actually think I don't remember. I mean, you got the notes there. I think I said something along the lines of it, like he's a rare high floor prospect that you just haven't seen much, right? And I think that's exactly what he is. He's got a really good feel to hit. The more I watched of him, even though it's limited, the more I liked about his just approach of the plate, his ability to hit. And there's no reason to think that guy can't be a nice utility type with a good chance to just hit the ball all over the field and be a solid all around player. You look at another name that was on there, Ivan Johnson. I think Johnson's really interesting. Another switch hitter, a lot of power, good athleticism. But the strikeout rate's a little bit of a concern. And, I don't necessarily know where he's going to end up defensively, but that bat can play. And I'm definitely interested in that bat. But yeah, I think those are two names that I'm following. Bryce Bonnin is like, he's got some freakish stuff and is a data darling. But I do see him as a bullpen arm, but I think he could be a wipeout bullpen arm. And that's worth noting, I think, in the prospect ranks as well. But those are definitely some of the names I think are definitely worth watching and monitoring moving forward.
Aram, do you think Alejo Lopez is a big leaguer?
He's tough, man. There's some of those guys that just mash in the upper level of the minors and can't quite put it together. But I do think he's got a spot in the big leagues. I think he belongs. It was kind of wild to see him just like only hit singles in his short big league stint. And I do think that that's going to be the big question. But anytime you walk more than you strike out in the upper levels, it's incredibly encouraging. He can play all over the diamond again, which really helps him. I think he's a big league utility guy that can put the bat on the ball, no doubt.
He's the type of guy that some old school manager is going to fall in love with because he puts the ball in play. He can play a few positions. He's not slow. Like, somebody's going to fall in love with him, kind of like the Juan Castro of the Reds, where it's like he was a negative WAR player for his 15-year career, but like he still gets jobs.
I think he'll be better than that.
Yeah. But no, I think Alejo Lopez, and I know I've said this before, raises the level of the bench bats that were in play last year. I'm not saying he's going to be great or even a starter or anything, but I believe he's better than the Mike Freemans, Alex Blandinos, any of those guys that were on the roster.
No, definitely.
In this past, he's been in, well, right now he's in Arizona working out, but he was in a Mexican league and he was playing shortstop and making play after play, diving, not just like, oh, he's out here playing shortstop and like kind of fielding a ball, like keep an eye on it. Like, he was making legit plays at short, and he played some short early in his career, hasn't recently, and he was hitting bombs, which is not MLB pitching, but I'm just watching him and thinking like, okay, everyone always talks about how he has no power. I just saw 2 home runs. Like, I've seen it in real life now and I think he could be a guy who would not be a 0 home run guy. You know what I mean?
Oh,
like,
no.
He has some gap power too.
Not at all. And I mean, like, I think he had one Oppo home run last year that was like 104 miles an hour, which, is not off the charts, but it shows me, some of the max exit velos over triple digits. He should be able to leave the yard in Cincinnati a handful of times, no problem. Zone contact off the charts, which I really like. Over a 90% zone contact rate, which is, that would be among the best in Major League Baseball.
Elite,
yeah. And you bring the defensive versatility there, puts the bat on the ball. Most of those guys that are utility dudes don't hit. So, I think he could be an interesting piece there.
If he was younger, I feel like people would be much higher on him. I think he kind of is what he is at this point. He has nothing left to prove, and that's why I was okay with them calling him up and using him as a bench bat. I don't see him, doing much more in the minors. I don't see why they need him down there. Either, keep him on the bench this year or see if you can trade him in a package, as a throw-in type thing to bring something else back.
You mentioned... Go ahead, Nick.
Sorry, I feel like if this was the 90s, he would absolutely be a big league starter somewhere.
Oh,
He's brought up in the wrong generation, but
throwback player, no doubt.
Yeah.
I mean, Zips has him as 5 home runs and nearly 500 plate appearances. So, I mean, that's what they're going on. 500? Nearly 500, 478, 5 home runs. So, I mean, it's really hard to be a big league starter at a non-premium position. If you play shortstop, I think it's different. It's a different story, but pretty hard 5 home runs and nearly a full season, to hold down a non-premium position.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is now that Buck is in charge of the Mets, that Alejo Lopez will be a Met.
Who are they going to give us, like Dom Smith back? I'm sure that they'd be willing to trade Dom Smith so we have another lefty.
I don't actually hate that.
You could put him in center.
Yeah. Yeah, I had him on and off on my Dynasty League team this past year, and it was like anytime someone got hurt because he could play first base and outfield, I was snagged him off the waiver wire.
Brandon Nimmo has too low of an average. Let's get this Lopez kid in there.
Yeah. Batting average and pitcher wins, the two things that matter.
Yeah. Thanks, P. Mantle.
Clay, I did want to ask you, who's your guy that wasn't on the top 10 that you're really, high on or whatnot?
So Callahan was a guy I was going to pick because of his hit tool, but I'll go off. Michael Ciani, I'll pick him mostly because I feel like everyone's kind of forgotten about him and kind of wrote him off. And the reason why is he was injured last year. He was a former top 10 prospect, I think as high as 6 in the Reds system. I'm not giving up on him, especially because he's one of the few people that are at that age and experience that he could get a look sooner rather than later. And as we went through these top 10, I mean, all these guys are years away. Ciani is a humongous year ahead of him. If I was a betting man, I wouldn't bet that he's going to turn out to be what everyone projected him to be. But yeah, I mean, he had upside at one point. He was injured last year, came back from injury, and it showed in his play. So big year ahead of him. And if you told me at the end of the year, like Michael Ciani played really well, like I would not be surprised. He has enough speed and ability in the outfield that, it's not out of the realm of possibilities that he could turn it around.
Nice.
Aram, was he a college baseball guy in like Pittsburgh area or something, or was he high school?
I thought he was a high school guy, if I'm not mistaken, but
I think he was committed somewhere, and didn't end up going or something. I don't remember. Just something about that rang a bell. But...
Interesting.
That's all that I have.
Yeah.
Perfect.
That's an hour and 23 minutes of talk of prospects. Anyone who's doing that on national championship night, wow.
Clay, it's 9-6 in the third quarter. No one's missing anything.
It's what?
It's 9-6 in the third quarter. No one's missing anything.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, I had a DVR'd, man. I was going to rewatch the whole thing.
Well, I just saved you 2 hours of time. So
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah, no problem at all, man. I could talk prospects for 5 hours. Even though
I do have one more quick question on updates to prospect list. How often do you plan on doing that? So Reds fans now are kind of tuned in and following you along and following just baseball. They're reading the Reds top 10. When should they expect? Is it draft? Is it mid-season? Is it beginning of season? What do you plan?
Yeah, so what I'm really excited about, I think, is when you see, I'm going to try and make these lists pretty fluid, but in terms of the actual full list relook update, I think we'll be doing them just about, this will be the one going into the season. Nothing's going to change. Then we'll probably do 2 updates during the season, and then, a final at the end of the year as well. The one thing that we will end up doing a lot of is, the Reds make a trade. I'm going to update that on the list, right? So, if Andrew Abbott goes out, somebody else is being ushered into the top 10, and we'll do that. It won't be a full update on everybody else, but I do want to keep that up to date. So we're, when Reds fans come to check on the top 10, it's not dated. So we will always be updating it. But in terms of this is our new top 10, definitely we'll have one done, I would say, probably 2 months into the season, do another one after, the halfway point, probably closer to the final quarter of the season, and then a final blast after the year is over. And same with the top 100 list as well.
Cool. Awesome. Something to keep an eye on. Also, where can we buy those sweet Just Baseball hoodies like you're rocking right now?
Oh yeah, you could check them out over at justbaseball.com. We got a little store shopping tab over there. I appreciate you asking. Yeah, I was really excited with how these came out.
I'm gonna have to order one. It's slick.
Oh please, hell yeah, I would love that. That'd be awesome. Yeah, over at the store on justbaseball.com.
Perfect.
On the back's a diamond with JB. It's nice. Yeah.
Ooh, perfect. Now, if you guys open a baseball card shop, you'll have all of my money.
I'm getting there.
I love it.
I got a bunch.
Yeah, thanks so much, Aram, for coming on. Love what you guys are doing over at Just Baseball.
Absolutely.
And Clay, we always love having you, my man. So yeah, thanks for coming on and filling an hour and a half. And I feel like you guys didn't even you just scratched the surface. I feel like you guys could have kept going.
I'll do it anytime, and I'm really excited. The prospect coverage is something I love. I'll actually be launching my own prospect show. I left the network I was with before. Obviously, wanted to bring it under Just Baseball, so I'll be launching a podcast on prospects. I'll be talking plenty about the Reds as well, and the two main guys called The Call Up that should be out in the next week or so. So for those who enjoy the prospect coverage, keep an eye out for that. I'll obviously blast it out on Twitter once it's official, but very excited about that. Going to have a lot of prospect interviews on there as well. Some high profile guys, a lot of top 100 guys, and obviously a lot of analysis like this too. So very excited about that. Really appreciate the time, guys. And looking forward to hopefully hopping on again when Ellie De La Cruz is on everybody else's top 100 list. And we can talk a little bit about that.
Awesome. We definitely look forward to that. So we're going to go and wrap this week's edition of Late Night Reds Talk up here on the Believe Podcast Network. Thank you all for tuning in. Really important. Got to make sure we get this in before we get out of here. On I know a lot of our listeners come from Spotify. We definitely appreciate it. You can now rate podcasts on Spotify. So for those of you who love Late Night Reds Talk Live, make sure you give us that 5-star on Spotify so we can keep getting our name out there. We also have to give an awesome shout out that we made number 17 of the top 20 Cincinnati podcasts. We definitely did not think that was going to be possible in our first year. So we can't thank everyone enough who's tuned in. And on behalf of Nick, Carlos, myself, Clay, Bryce, everyone who joins in, we definitely appreciate everything. So have a good one. We'll let you get back to the college football championship for some godforsaken reason. Take it easy, everybody.